I'm Kate Merifield, and my senior project is called Math is Femme, short for Math is Feminine.
I suppose, like, in the context of U.S. society, things that are feminine, paying more particular attention to your appearance, like makeup, the way you dress is a lot more particular. In terms of relationships, playing like supportive and caring roles, as opposed to, I think of masculinity as being more competitive interpersonally.
I think gentle initially, more friendship-based or more collaborative kind of throughout my life, and then particularly now strong, outspoken.
I think femininity to me means like being empathetic, being cooperative. I think these are very textbook definitions, but I think that bringing a certain sense of sensitivity and caring to your attitude and to your work, as well as your leadership style, I think that those are very feminine ways to interact.
Women and non-binary people historically and in the present time are underrepresented in STEM fields. Right now, women make up only 28% of the science and engineering workforce. Only 34.4% of undergraduate degrees are given to women, and only 17% of faculty in STEM programs are women. Personally, as a math student here at UW, I have only had 3 of my 16 math professors be women, and only one of those was in a higher level math class. Not only is this an issue of equal access and representation, but it's also an issue of innovation for the future. For instance, when the seatbelt was first being designed, it was designed by men and only tested on men. Thus, when it was put out into the market, several injuries occurred before they were able to adjust it for women and children. This is a very explicit example of how making advancements and innovations with only the perspective of half the populations may only serve only half the population. Some of the things keeping women and non-binary people out of STEM fields are a lack of representation, a lack of feeling of belonging that can lead to things like imposter syndrome, and a perception of STEM fields, especially math, as masculine. This leads to many women and non-binary people feeling as if they have to leave their femininity behind to enter masculine fields, or that they stand out and feel uncomfortable as feminine because STEM fields are such a masculine environment. This can often lead to them feeling as if they don't belong or don't deserve to be in the spaces in STEM. I didn't realize how much of an impact that the lack of feeling of belonging and imposter syndrome can have until I was at a information session for women who had been accepted into a program. And the program was very predominantly male, and so they hosted this special time for women to come in and ask questions to other women who had been in the program. And one of the panelists at the very beginning stood up and said, "I just want everyone here to know that you're all wanted. We wanted you to be here. You deserve to be here. You are qualified. There was no mistake. We want you here, and we want you in this program." I could not believe how affected I was by someone saying this. I didn't realize how I had just internalized. I had thought that it must have been a mistake that I was here, and that it must have been, they probably didn't mean to accept me. But you could see me and everyone else in the room kind of relaxing and really trying to accept this. And a few of us even kind of started to tear up. It was so powerful to hear that. After this experience, I started to talk to others and realized how many people were affected by this lack of feeling belonging in these fields.
So a lot of us in STEM fields in general, and women or queer people especially, struggle with quote-unquote what we know as imposter syndrome. And I definitely have experienced this at times. I don't feel like I experience marginalization based on my gender as much as my more feminine peers. Like, I've had a lot of experiences like that, where I feel like the abilities of my equally competent women or gender nonconforming peers and coworkers are dismissed more quickly than mine because I present as more masculine.
There was one time in high school where I think it was my junior or senior year, I was studying physics at home, and I was asking my grandpa for help because he's an engineer and he had knowledge of physics. And I just remember telling him, it's really hard for me to grasp this concept. And he just told me, he's like, it's just because that's how women's brains work. They don't work to understand physics or math or chemistry or those kinds of things. I just found that so surprising because, he was my grandpa. He knew me very, very well. He knew that my interests were in science, and his own daughter is my mom, who, is a pediatrician.
I worked on cars for a little bit, and one of the people said, we don't want any women working on our cars, so we weren't allowed to work on particular cars depending on the customer. I was selected to give a pitch, and one of the men in my group was like, no, I want to give it instead, even though he hadn't done the level of work I'd done, so that didn't feel great.
I first decided to do my senior project on creating a community environment to support women and non-binary people in the STEM fields, specifically students at UW. Although there are many organizations already supporting women on campus, such as the Society of Women Engineers and the Association of Women in Mathematics, these are more focused towards creating networking opportunities and other career and academic help and support. I wanted to create an environment focused on support and making new connections within these STEM fields, as well as make sure that everyone was welcome in this environment, including non-binary students. I was inspired to do this by the amazing community that I have found here at UW within the STEM fields. I have been lucky enough to encounter a lot of students and professors that have welcomed me and supported me throughout my time here, and I realized that not everyone may be as lucky as I was to encounter such supportive networks, and I wanted to make sure that everyone had the ability to be supported like I was. To create this community for my project, I was able to host an event at Rachel's Ginger Beer on March 3rd, which attracted about 30 people. I reached out to many groups on campus and tried to cast as wide a net as possible to get as many people as I could to come, as well as wide a range so that everyone was welcome. About 30 people came to the event, and I was really happy to see that not only were there professionals, students, graduate students, there were even a few high school students that came because they were interested in pursuing STEM degrees in the future. One of the most inspiring things about this event was seeing older students and professionals talk to younger students. For instance, graduate students speaking a lot to undergraduate students about the process of applying to graduate school and deciding which graduate school they wanted to do. This type of interaction was especially important to me because I didn't see a lot of that kind of mentorship or advising from older students to younger students go on very much when I was going through the math department, and I think that's something that a lot of people could benefit from. This event also went really well because there were many people that expressed their interest in continuing to be part of this type of community and wanting to make more and more events and connections happen. It was also just a really fun event. There's a lot of people there casually interacting and getting to know each other, talking about their research and their experiences in STEM fields. And we had a few posters where people could write their favorite STEM joke and write their name in different representations or symbols that are commonly used in STEM fields. As I mentioned before, there were a few professionals that came and were able to also give advice to students that were looking for jobs, as well as explain what the steps they had taken after graduation to find their current positions. This is again the type of mentorship and interactions that I was really hoping would come out of these events. This event was exactly how I wanted my community to be. It was open and inclusive and served as a platform for many people to make connections, to meet each other, and to talk about their interests in a casual and inclusive manner. The most important part of this event was that women and non-binary people met others who challenged the perception of STEM and everyone in STEM as being masculine. With these interactions and connections, people who are not necessarily masculine will hopefully feel more comfortable in STEM environments. I was hoping to host more community gatherings and events, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, that is now not possible. I pivoted to 2 other projects that I think will also help support women and non-binary people in STEM fields, as well as the Seattle community. First, I created a network of tutors who are students here at UW, most of them seniors who had had a lot of tutoring experience in the past, that were willing to donate their time and provide tutoring to middle and high school students. We have tutors now for math, chemistry, biology, physics, and environmental science. I now have 7 tutors signed up, a website going, and I'm working with community organizations and community centers to reach out to students who may be in need of tutoring and that could use our services. I'm hoping that this will not only help the communities that are now being impacted by the pandemic, but will also show younger students the diversity of people in STEM fields. I'm also going to create a short film to highlight the experiences of women and non-binary people in STEM degree paths here at UW. I'm going to interview a handful of UW seniors who are graduating with STEM degrees this year and ask them about their research, their experience going through the paths, as well as what they've struggled with as someone who is feminine existing in a masculine environment. I have had a few of these interviews, and I was surprised. I initially thought that each interview would last about 20 minutes, and each one has lasted about an hour. I was surprised not only at how much people were willing to share, but how much people had to say and the specific struggles that they've gone through to get to where they are, and how being a woman or non-binary person in STEM has impacted their path. I've learned a lot in this process, including just how powerful it can be to gather a group of like-minded people in a room and have them connect with each other. I've also been really inspired about all the stories I've been able to hear and people I've been able to meet through this process, and how all of them have had their own path and struggles. I've heard a lot about how people have struggled as someone feminine in a masculine field, and how there's been a lot of adversity and challenges against them. But I've also heard about some very supportive and inspiring stories about people banding together and working together to work against those challenges. I want to end this presentation with a particularly inspiring clip from one of the interviews that I conducted. Here, Liz was asked if she had any words that she wanted to pass on to younger students, and I was really touched by what she said and thought it really summed up what my project was trying to capture.
I just want to remind my viewers that if you are somebody who has felt marginalized in STEM communities or fields, by being there and by having the courage to be present in that space and to change the rhetoric of those fields, the values of those fields, you're making space for people who identify with you to see your role as something that they could live or fulfill or become one day. So yeah, by being present, you're creating that possibility for a young kid that looks up to you, and by being present, you're changing the composition and the future of those fields. So even just existing somewhere has power is kind of what I would like to say. Yeah.